In my last Emerald video, I did a run with the Psychic type Gardevoir. It was a great way to celebrate my wedding and wreck Hoenn with a fantastic special attacker. So today, let's try something that is completely different, a physical attacker that is a fighting type. So I'm going to be Pokemon Emerald with only a Hariyama. Now before we get into talking about its stats and other stuff like that, I want to talk about its aesthetic, because this thing is based on a sumo wrestler, and it is very humanoid, and it is a fighting type, so as a kid I really did not like it. It gives me Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, as well as Conkeldurr vibes, and all of those Pokemon are not my favorites. To this day I have never used a Hariyama on my team exclusively because of its aesthetics. Maybe today's playthrough will convince me that this thing is worth having as a part of your team. Now while its aesthetics are not to my liking, it does have absolutely fantastic stats. It has 144 HP, giving it so much bulk, 120 attack, making it hit like a truck, and then its other stats are less good. 60 defense, 40 special attack, 60 special defense, and 50 speed. I think it is obvious that this thing is not going to be using a single special move, despite the fact that it does learn Surf, which I find hilarious. Anyways, as a result, I am going to give it an Adamant Nature, raising its attack stat and lowering its special attack. I should also mention that Hariyama is part of the fluctuating growth rate, which is very fast in the early game, but slows down to a snail's pace in the late game. However, if we use the data from my former playthroughs with fluctuating growth rate Pokemon, and here is a spoiler, they are doing quite well. Crawdaunt is the top-ranked Pokemon in my entire tier list. Making Hariyama even better is the fact that its ability can be Guts. And this is so good. It means when it has a non-volatile status condition like Paralysis or Poison, its attack stat will be increased by 50%. I'm going to talk about this more later on in the video, but for now it seems really good. Okay, so let's talk about its move pool. It starts with Tackle, Focus Energy, Sand Attack, and Arm Thrust. Then it gets Vital Throw, Fake Out, Knock Off, Smelling Salt, Belly Drum, Seismic Toss, and Reversal. Through TM and HM, it is going to get access to the regular moves like Hidden Power as well as Return, and then some incredible physical moves like Earthquake, Dig, and Brick Break. I should note here that it does learn Rock Tomb, but that move is not incredible, so I'm not going to include it with the others. Okay, so wrapping things up for Hariyama, it is a fighting type, which means it is weak to flying and psychic types. Overall, I don't think flying types will be that much of an issue. After all, Winona is not that powerful, but Tate and Liza are very good, so I have a sinking feeling that is probably going to be the hardest point in the game for Hariyama. So now let's talk about my starting moves. Arm Thrust is an okay fighting type move. It has base 15 power, and it hits between 2 and 5 times per turn. There is a 37.5% chance that it will hit 2 times, as well as 3 times, and a 12.5% chance that it will hit 4 times or 5 times. Normally this sort of move is underwhelming, it takes a lot of time to do its damage, but at least it is going to be super effective against Roxanne's rock types. I also get access to Tackle whenever I don't want to be using a fighting type move, like against bugs or flying types, and then I get Sand Attack just in case. I don't think that Hariyama is going to need this today, but it is always nice to have an accuracy lowering move because they can get you out of some sticky situations. Now I've saved Focus Energy to talk about last because it actually does work in Generation 3, unlike in Generation 1 where it makes your critical hit chance worse. I think we could debate if that is a Generation 1 feature or a Generation 1 bug, but we'll have to do that later on in October, when I actually have a chance to use Focus Energy. Anyways, in this case, this move could be useful, but I think overall this is going to be one of the first moves for me to remove from my set. Now in the early game of most Emerald playthroughs, I am fighting most trainers just to get some experience. Hariyama, I definitely did not fight everyone, and then once I get into the gym and I'm facing the rock types here, I level up and get access to Vital Throw. If you are like me, and you've played pretty much exclusively Generation 1 and Generation 2 over the last few years, I should explain this move for you. It has base 70 power and decreased priority, meaning you're going to move after the opponent. Also, it bypasses accuracy checks, so I'm just going to make a quick note about my video. Vital Throw's accuracy is listed at 100%, but that is just a mistake. So now with this powerful fighting type move on my set, I think I am ready to take on Roxanne. Now there is a benefit to using this move as my go-to against her, because I just don't care about the rock tombs that lower my speed. I am going to be moving second anyways, and using Vital Throw as my go-to move, I am able to KO both of her Geodudes. So now I am moving on to the Nose Pass. I am slower than it, which means it's going to be using Tackle, Block, or Harden. In this case it goes for Tackle. My Vital Throw takes it to red, it eats an Oran Berry and she uses a potion to save it. I take it back down to a Sliver, and yeah, she continues to heal it, but eventually I finish it off, and I take an easy victory as was to be expected. Now the badge that she gives me boosts my attack stat by 10%, making Hariyama even better than it already was. I also get the TM for Rock Tomb, but I'm just gonna go to the mart and sell this right away. This TM is absolutely trash. 50 base power and 80% accuracy? Are you kidding me? What a bad move. I don't know why in the first 3 generations they invented like no good rock moves. The best one is Ancient Power, and it is only base 60 power. Like, you could argue that Rock Slide is better, but the accuracy is not good. 90%? Yeah, it's 50%. Let's move on. Now, as I fight Brendan, I want to mention something you would have noticed when I was in the mart. I bought both Paralyze Heals and Escape Ropes in Rustboro City. This is to minimize the number of times I enter a mart throughout the playthrough. I used to go to Slateport City to buy the Paralyze Heals, but I think just doing it all at once is the best choice. Brendan's team is completely easy for Hariyama to smash. There is no starter that he could have that would be strong against a fighting type. After that, I catch myself some HM users, take the boat all the way to Dewford Town where I pick up the Silk Scarf, which improves the damage of normal type moves by 10%. I delivered the letter to Steven, and with all of that out of the way, I am ready to face Brawley. His first Pokemon is Machop, and it goes for Bulk Up right away. My Vital Throw takes it to yellow, it hits a Karate Chop doing 1/3, and then I get the knockout. Okay, so next is Meditite, and this thing is going to take forever to knock out because it is a fighting psychic type. You might wonder here why I'm using Arm Thrust and not Tackle. After all, Tackle does neutral damage, but I really do not want to miss, because the Meditite's only damage dealing move is Focus Punch. So as long as I consistently deal damage, I will knock it out for free. Last is his Makuhita. I use Vital Throw, taking it to red. I moved first there because our speeds are compared when we are both using Vital Throw. After that, we both use our berries. I only have an Oran Berry, he has a Citrus Berry, a little bit frustrating. Then Makuhita goes for Bulk Up, barely survives, and uses Reversal. Oh no, so yeah, that is my first reset. I think it's quite ironic here that the Makuhita was the Pokemon that knocked out my Hariyama. Anyways, I want to beat him now. I do not want to have to backtrack here later on like I do with Dark types. And that is because the prize for this battle is the TM for Bulk Up. Yeah, I really want that. In this case, I guess my strategy is just pray for no reversal. He doesn't use it, and with that, I win, earning myself the TM for Bulk Up, which I immediately teach in the place of Sand Attack. So let's take a trip to Slateport Beach now. Here I pick up the Soft Sand because later on this will be useful in combination with Earthquake. After that I grab an Ether as well as a Heart Scale, and then I head into the little beach house to grab some Soda Pops. After that, I head to the museum, finish off all of the Aqua Grunts here, and then I head north towards Mauville City. Now because Wattson is coming up soon, I think that it is time to finally explain Guts. When a Pokemon has a non-volatile status condition, it gets its attack boosted by 50%. Now there are a couple of exceptions here. For example, Sleep will not be able to boost my attack because I will be sleeping when it would have boosted my attack, and then I will wake up and lose the boost, so that's not relevant. Also, there is a weird quirk when your Pokemon is frozen. If it uses a move that is a Fire-type move that thaws you, you keep your attack boost for the attack. However, this is also not really relevant in Generation 3 because all Fire-type moves are special, so they don't use your physical attack anyways. However, that is relevant in Generation 4 when you can use a move like Flare Blitz, but that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I am nowhere near starting Generation 4, at least right now. We have a lot of development work to do on Gamehook first. Okay, so there's one more status condition that you might think is an exception, Burn. When your Pokemon has this status condition, its attack is reduced. However, when you have Guts, you do not actually lose attack from being burned. So the 3 status conditions that I can use to trigger Guts are going to be Paralysis, Poison, and Burn. It's quite hard to find a Pokemon in the wild that can burn you, and Paralysis cuts your speed as well as your consistency, so overall the status condition that makes the most sense to use Guts with is Poison. So now with that out of the way, let's go into the battle against Brendan where we can see Guts in action for the first time. By the way, the overlay is calculating this boost into my attack stat as displayed in the bottom left. Now, while Brendan is incredibly easy for my Hariyama to take care of because it has a monstrous attack stat, I do want to note here that the poison damage actually stacks up throughout the fight, so I don't take a victory that feels quite as dominant as I thought it should. Anyways, before Wattson, there's a few things left to do. I grab the bike. After that, I have a strangely close fight against Wally. That is not a good omen. And now, with that out of the way, I am ready to try Wattson for the first time. Now there is another advantage to going into this fight pre-poisoned. That is that I cannot get paralyzed. Because of that I feel safe to set a Bulk Up once, and then I use Arm Thrust which gets a 3-hit and knocks the Voltorb out. I take some poison damage, then Electrike comes out, he uses Howl, and I KO. Okay, so since I play a lot of Generation 1, I am not used to poison damage on turns when I get the knockout, and it is really stacking up. Magneton is next. Normally it's his hardest Pokemon, but not today. But by the time his ace Manectric comes out, I just don't have much health left over. Also, it is faster, so it moves first, uses Shockwave, and Hariyama goes down. So normally when I go into the Wattson fight, I am around level 30 or 33, so I think I should just do some extra training. I heal up, train, and during this I get poisoned again, so I decided to go back to Wattson, and this is going to end in another loss for me. So I just took all this time to explain to you why Guts is so good, it boosts your attack, and what I've learned now is that it is not so good for solo challenges. Like, it can be useful if you just randomly get poisoned during the fight and then it boosts your attack stat, but pre-poisoning yourself is not always the best choice because you do have to make it through multiple Pokemon. So I guess it could be useful in fights where you only have to fight 1 or 2 Pokemon, but because this is Emerald, there aren't very many major battles like that throughout the rest of the playthrough. For my third attempt against Wattson, I come back without a status condition, I get Bulk Up set up to +2, and then I sweep. It is so much easier doing things this way. Hariyama earns itself the Dynamo badge, and with that, it gets a 10% boost to its speed stat. And it is going to continue to get upgrades throughout the next section of the game, some major ones actually. First, I grab Secret Power, which is a good upgrade to Tackle. After that, I grab a Protein, boosting its attack EV. And then I realized that I had forgotten Dig, so I go back for it, pick up Dig, and teach it in the place of Arm Thrust. I take a gondola ride up to the top of Mount Chimney, and here Maxie is waiting for me. Now everyone, I want you to tune in. If you're watching in the background, let's watch the video right now, because I have some absolutely killer strats here. After getting hit by Intimidate, I go for Secret Power. Yes, Secret Power when the Mightyena is a Dark type and I am a Fighting type with Vital Throw. Also then, it uses Sand Attack, lowering my accuracy. And I decided that the right thing to do is go for Bulk Up a bunch and then use Secret Power again. At least it does hit and finish the Mightyena off. Clearly my plays were completely genius. From there, I just continue to miraculously hit and I finish Maxie off. Well deserved, right? With this battle out of the way, I grab the Meteorite, return to Fall Arbor Town where I pick up TM27, and then I teach Return in the place of Secret Power. With my current friendship, it is base 77 power, so that is a 10% improvement. Now, I want to pause and explain a move, because Hariyama can learn the move Smelling Salt, which has to be one of the most strangely named moves in the entire game. By the way, starting in Generation 6, this name was updated to Smelling Salts, and it was also given a nice little space. Anyways, not really relevant for today. Let's talk about what this move does in Generation 3. It has a base power of 60 and will do double damage against a paralyzed target, but it also cures the target of paralysis, so overall this is just a really weird move, and it's quite bad, so I am not going to be using it today. Now I want to mention something really strange about this move, which is Smelling Salts in real life wake you up. So why isn't this move dealing double damage against sleeping Pokemon and then waking them up? I don't know. It's weird. Also, this is another case where I wish Game Freak made the interesting, flavorful moves very powerful. Like, why isn't Bone Meringue better in Generation 1? These moves should be better than the default options like Earthquake or Brick Break. Whatever. Anyways, it's time for Flannery. Let's do this. In this fight, there has been a trend lately, and that is that I can set up on the Numel and basically sweep her for free. So yeah, that's what's going to happen today. She can do nothing to stop my Hariyama, and I take a very quick victory. On my way backtracking through the middle of the map, I grab the White Herb, and now let's fight the next gym leader. It is No Intro Norman. Here, I go for Bulk Up once, then I use Return on the Spinda, knocking it out. Vigoroth is next. I take it down to a small amount of health, and here I should have anticipated his healing item and used another Bulk Up, but here I just attack and knock it out, leaving the potential setup on the table. And then his Linoon comes out, and I continue my amazing plays by going for Bulk Up against it. This is very risky, because I'm mostly using Vital Throw to attack, and this thing can use Belly Drum to max out its attack stat. Luckily it doesn't do this, and I knock it out on the next turn. Okay, so it's time for his Ace, Slacking, but this thing is essentially free if you outspeed and no Dig. That's because you can go underground when it's going to use Counter, and then on the turns that it's loafing around, you hit it doing damage. In this case, it's going to take me 3 turns to knock it out, so I take another easy victory over Norman, earning myself the Balance Badge and a 10% boost to my defense stat. Okay, so let's just reflect on how this run is going so far. Overall, things are really good. And here I want to talk about an observation that I am making about fighting types in Hoenn. Unlike Pokemon that use special moves, which usually peak after Norman when they get access to Thunderbolt as well as Ice Beam, fighting types really peak early on in these games. They get Bulk Up after Brawley, and then can usually sweep through the mid portion of the game. Also, a lot of powerful physical moves are given to them after they defeat Wattson, like in Hariyama's case, Dig and Return. Honestly, this makes me hopeful about fighting type's eventual overall placement in my tier list in Generation 3, because believe me, in Generation 1, these Pokemon are not very good. Like, there is Hitmonlee that performs decently well because it has all the good fighting type moves, but even then, it was so inconsistent and frustrating when I streamed it. Also, there's Poliwrath, but it's actually going to be worse than Poliwhirl, believe me. That's because it doesn't get Amnesia, and the fighting type really brings it down. Plus, it gets slower when it evolves. That feels so bad. Anyways, I'm really liking how much better this typing got in Generation 3. It's so refreshing. On my way backtracking through the map, I'm able to pick up the TM for Hidden Power, which in this case is going to be a Ghost type move. By the way, with fighting types, it appears that Hidden Power Ghost is the best to go with, just because it counters Tate and Liza, and it also combos really well with Bulk Up, which is absolutely hilarious. However, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because coming up next is Winona. To prepare for this fight, I give Hariyama the Silk Scarf, and now we're going to see how this fighting type does against the Flying type Gym Leader. Her first Pokemon is Swablu, which I easily one-hit with Return. Next, she sends in Skarmory, which is a really terrifying opponent to go up against in most challenges. Here, I'm going to take my time and set up Bulk Up because there's no way I'm going to one-hit this thing. It uses Aerial Ace, not doing very much. I go for Vital Throw, but that only takes it to yellow. Okay, so I need more damage. Let's use Bulk Up one more time. I survive and KO on the next turn. She sends in Tropius, and I can just use Return to knock this thing out in a single turn. And then comes out the most annoying Pokemon in the entire game, Pelipper. However, today it decides to cooperate, going for Protect on the first turn, allowing me to set up one more Bulk Up and then knock it out. This gives Hariyama enough experience to level up and have the chance to learn Belly Drum. Now, in this case, I think that Bulk Up is just going to be the better move because it is also changing my defense stat, and Belly Drum does have your HP. So for now, I'm going to say no to this move. After all, I can always get it later if I need it from the move reminder. Altaria is last. I survive Dragon Breath and get the KO, so the Flying type Gym Leader was not a problem for Hariyama. I've earned myself the 6th badge, and with it I am moving on to the plotline portion of the game. Up first here, I have to take on Maxie. I want you to watch the absolutely amazing play against him. So yeah, I am using Vital Throw against a Crobat. It's a flying poison type. Both of those types resist fighting type moves. So that is a dual resistance. I am doing a quarter damage here. I think it's funny though that Hariyama is just so good in terms of physical attack that these moves are still doing a decent amount of damage. Finally, I figure out that I am making a critical misplay, and I choose Return, knocking the Crobat out. Next is Camerupt. It does take me to yellow, but that doesn't matter, and I end up winning anyways. Okay, so it's time for the most stylish trainer in the game. It's Matt. By the way, every time I'm recording the script here, I almost say Gym Leader Matt. If you want other good solo challenge videos, go and check his channel out, by the way. Anyways, in Pokemon Emerald, Team Aqua admin Matt actually sometimes causes problems, even more so I would say than Maxie, especially in the cases where I forget my Person Berry, and I did that as usual today. However, Hariyama is just too strong and I win. So with that portion of the game out of the way, now there is too much water. And this actually gives me access to an area which is very good to explore, Shoal Cave. By doing that, I can earn myself the Shell Bell, which is a fantastic held item. Also, there's one rare candy at sea. This is a bit dangerous to obtain when you're using a fighting type because one of the trainers blocking it has 2 flying type Pokemon. No reset for me though, so I grab the rare candy. After that, I head to Pacifidlog Town where I pick up another Return TM. Then I teach Hidden Power, which is a ghost type move, in the place of Dig. After all, this move is only base 60 power and it takes 2 turns. It has really fallen off by this point in the game. After that, I give Hariyama a Chesto Berry, and I am finally ready to take on the Psychic Gym Leaders. Hopefully this one is not going to be too brutal. I figured that because of Hariyama's incredible attack stat, I would only need 1 turn of setup, and then I should be able to sweep with Hidden Power. However, the issue here is that I am not able to KO the Claydol on the first turn. It just barely survives. Now, targeting the Claydol was a bad choice because the Xatu used Calm Mind, and now it's able to hit a boosted Psychic, which gets the KO. I came back into the fight thinking that maybe if I got +2 I would be able to sweep. However, this doesn't work out because Tate and Liza are prioritizing Psychic, so I think it is time to change things up. I explore some additional areas, picking up a rare candy. After all, this will be useful later on. I am the fluctuating growth rate after all. Then I train Hariyama up to level 48 over another damage rounding threshold, and I backtrack to the move reminder to pick up Belly Drum. I figured that I wasn't setting up fast enough with Bulk Up, and maybe this move would solve that problem. However, then in the next battle, after using Belly Drum, the Claydol's Earthquake gets a critical hit. I consume my Citrus Berry. I'll definitely KO now, but unfortunately Hariyama doesn't move first, so that is another reset. Okay, so different strategy because I took way too much damage from Belly Drum. Let's use Bulk Up just once, and then target the Xatu and knock it out. The Claydol is doing much less damage, so this ends up working out for me, and they send in Lunatone next. This thing has a lot of powerful Psychic type moves, and it has quite high special attack, so I'm gonna knock it out next. And it goes down to a single hidden power ghost. Okay, so let's continue the sweep by knocking out the Soul Rock in one turn. And yeah, Claydol is just not able to do enough damage by the time I am prioritizing knocking it out, so I take the win. Unfortunately for Hariyama, the victory here doesn't really give it any good advantages. It gets a boost to its special attack and special defense, but that's not really that important. Alright, so let's speed through the next section of the game. The Space Center battle is completely trivial, the battle against Archie and the plotline is easy, and then there's this awesome cinematic, which leads me to Sutopolis City. Now here there is another great TM that I can finally pick up. It is Brick Break. However, I'm going to save this for later on because right now holding onto Hidden Power is going to be useful. After all, Phoebe is still coming up in the league and this move is my solution to her. By the way, I just want to mention here, there's some strange stuff going on in Juan's gym. Why is it all frozen? He is a water type gym leader and he gives you the Water Pulse TM, which makes no sense this late into the game. For an interesting comparison, the 7th gym leader in Kanto, Blaine, gives you Fire Blast, but Juan gives you Water Pulse. It doesn't make any sense. In the remakes, Fire Red and Leaf Green, Misty gives you this TM. This is an absolutely terrible TM. Why didn't they just make Juan give you Ice Beam? After all, you have to solve ice puzzles to fight him. Anyways, with that little bit of complaining out of the way, let's take on the 8th gym leader. Here, I want to do a trivia moment. It's basically like one of those games that you play in a bar where it asks you a question, you have 3 answers. So, what berry should you hold for the Juan battle? The answers are the citrus berry, the person berry, or the cherry berry. Which one is it? I'll give you a moment. Once you've got your answer in mind, yeah, it's obviously the person berry, definitely not the citrus berry. And yeah, Hariyama, as a result, gets confused, hits itself after setting up Belly Drum, and gets the knockout on itself. By the way, back when I was facing Winona, I said that I preferred Bulk Up. That's because it boosts your defense, and in this case, boosting my defense is just much better, because then when I deal self-inflicted confusion damage, it does less to myself. After all, confusion uses your Pokemon's attack as well as your Pokemon's defense to calculate the self-inflicted damage. As a result, when you use Bulk Up, it is a little bit harder to mess up. And believe me, I mess up a lot when I am playing these games. In my defense, playing on 4 times game speed is quite challenging. However, I still don't think I'm a particularly good player. I am working on it though. Against Juan, you'll notice that I set up to +2, and this is more than enough for Hariyama to get the sweep. So that is another thing about Belly Drum. This thing doesn't really need +6 to be able to sweep. It's much better to just have more HP for the rest of the fight rather than having more attack. After all, you start overkilling so much. With that, Juan is out of the way, and I've earned myself the Water Pulse TM. Alright, let's move on to Victory Road. Now, despite some misplays, Hariyama has an incredible time, under an hour and a half. Emerald is honestly feeling easier and easier each time I play it. I think that a factor complicating this is the fact that I started this Emerald series with some Pokemon that were actually a little bit more difficult, like Shiftry, Ludicolo, or Sableye, for example. Maybe it would have been better for me to start the series off with Pokemon like Hariyama, but then again, I'm not sure if that's the case. However, at the beginning of the series, I did play Pokemon like Rayquaza and Mewtwo, so I didn't play with exclusively bad final stage Pokemon. However, we have to get back to the playthrough now because the Gardevoir on Wally's team is faster than Hariyama, so that's a reset. And here, you might wonder what the answer is to this thing. And honestly, it was probably using rare candies since Hariyama is decently leveled and it makes sense to start leveling up more because the league is coming up next. However, what I do is I just go back into the battle and the Gardevoir uses Future Sight, and as a result, I am able to finish the battle. However, that doesn't get me all the way to the league, because in Victory Road I have an annoying fight against Cool Trainer Samuel. The reason is his Mawile knows Iron Defense, so it sets up a lot and it's taking very little damage every hit. However, don't worry, this doesn't end up in a reset. I train up to level 53, and with that, I am now ready for the league. Now, let's watch me spectacularly mess up against Sydney. While we do that, I'm going to talk about the good ways to fight him. First of all, the best held item, of course, is the White Herb, because it counters Intimidate. This only applies to physical attackers. If you're a special attacker, do not use the White Herb. You could use something like the Shell Bell or a Chesto Berry if you really want to heal. Now, it's very important against Sydney to use a move that bypasses accuracy checks, because the Mightyena loves to use Sand Attack, and then later on, Pokemon like the Shift Tree love to set up Double Team. Now, Hariyama is a fighting type, which is super effective against the Dark type, so obviously what I should be doing here is using Vital Throw. However, I did do the third thing that's good against Sydney, which is setting up against his Mightyena. This thing doesn't know Swagger, Scary Face, Torment, Double Team, any of the moves that are awful to face. And as long as you have a move that bypasses accuracy checks, whenever it uses Sand Attack, it's basically doing nothing. So I did one thing right, I knocked the Mightyena out and move on to the Shift Tree. Now, I do want to mention here that this thing gets out of control with Double Team. I had basically given up in the fight, but eventually return hits and I knock it out. Surprisingly, after that, I am able to sweep through Sydney's entire team, and that is despite some truly awful play. Now, Phoebe is next, and she is going to be very easy. This is for a couple of reasons. Number one, the first turn, the Dusclops always uses Protect, so you can just set up Bulk Up, improving my already great attack. Then I have super effective damage in the form of Hidden Power Ghost, and if you check in with all of her Pokemon's speed stats on the right side of the screen, you'll notice that Hariyama is faster than all of the ghosts. That seems very counterintuitive, but I guess I'll take it. So yeah, I easily finish off Phoebe, and now, before Glacia, I'm going to teach Brick Break in the place of Hidden Power. I figured it was time to once again have a fantastic fighting type move. After all, it gives me a type advantage against all of her ice types. I decided for this fight that I would just use Belly Drum and then sweep with Brick Break. It felt like the fastest way to defeat her, but speed matters in this battle because both the Glalie and the Walrein are faster than Hariyama. I thought that the Shell Bell would counter this out, allowing me to gain back some health, but it just isn't enough and this leads to a reset. However, Hariyama isn't being outsped significantly. If I use just 2 rare candies, then I have 101 speed, which allows me to move first against the first Glalie as well as the Walrein. This is more than enough for me to sweep. Now I run into some problems against Drake. Check this fight out. I max my attack with Belly Drum on the Shelgon, and then I start my sweep. After I make it to the Kingdra, I get hit by Smokescreen, lowering my accuracy. However, I figured this wouldn't be a huge issue. I do make it to his Salamence, which actually doesn't knock me out. I just barely survive. And then, at the critical moment, Hariyama misses. So I was so close, but unfortunately I'm not going to win this one. I think the reason I lost that though, again, was that Belly Drum just did too much damage to me, so I'm going to switch to Bulk Up, and once again, this of course is the solution. While it is slower to initially get set up, it is what I need to knock out all of his Pokemon and make it to the champion Wallace. Wallace's first Pokemon is Wailord, and against it I am going to once again go for Belly Drum. I think it should be clear to all of you that I really wanted to make this move work, and against him it actually kind of does. I outspeed most of his Pokemon, the Tentacruel does hit me, and then I make it to the Gyarados. However, this thing is much faster and it does enough damage to finish me off. So let's put Rest in the place of Return. After all, this normal type move isn't very useful for Steven Stone, who is the only trainer after Wallace. I'm also going to give a Chesto Berry in the place of the Shell Bell. What I wanted here was to heal against the Ludicolo. However, what ends up happening is that Rain is still on the field by that time. It has Swift Swim, so it's able to move first, and that is another loss. Now, if you remember how the fluctuating growth rate works, this gets so slow by the late game, so using rare candies as late as is possible into a playthrough is the best play. I'm not sure if this is premature to use them now, but Hariyama does technically have a type advantage against a lot of Steven's Pokemon. So let's use rare candies, and I'm going to go all the way up to level 67. This gives me more speed than the Gyarados, and because of that, the Shell Bell is healing enough while I am sweeping. I get to the Gyarados, it intimidates me, I knock it out, even with not very effective damage from Brick Break. All that's left is Milotic. I go for Brick Break on it as well, and it goes down. So Hariyama finishes the league at 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 23 seconds with 12 resets at level 67. This took 6 hours and 4 minutes of game time. honestly, that is a pretty good finish. However, it felt way less stable than the last 3 Pokemon that I played. Crawdaunt, Exploud, and Gardevoir all felt more intuitive to play up until this point. And I think that that's maybe because I'm being seduced by Belly Drum. It seems like such an amazing move, but in the end it's not really that good, and I think if I had just never taught it to Hariyama, I would have produced better results. I'm sure a lot of you are gonna scream at me in the comments about that, so I look forward to reading those. Okay, so I'm finally gonna get rid of this move, don't worry. I'm gonna teach Earthquake in its place because this move is gonna be fantastic against a bunch of Steven's Pokemon. With that, I am ready to face him. Now things start off quite difficult here for Hariyama, because his first Pokemon is his only flying type. However, luckily for me, Bulk Up is going to make me take less damage from all of its hits every time it attacks. Also, I have Rest in combination with a Chesto Berry just so I can counter Skarmory's Toxic. I'm able to get to +5 attack before I'm finally forced to heal. Now, it is time to use Brick Break and Earthquake to sweep through Steven's Pokemon. Honestly, I have to say these 4 moves feel like the perfect moveset against him. So what could go wrong? I knock the Skarmory out, he chooses to send in Armaldo next, which I knock out, and then it's time for his ace, Metagross. Now unfortunately for me, this thing is significantly faster than Hariyama. It goes for Psychic, but it doesn't do enough. Okay, so I'm able to use Earthquake and knock it out. However, next Steven chooses Claydol, which doesn't have good moves against me when my defense stat is so high, but my health is so low that it is able to knock me out. Well, what if I get to +6? And the answer is this doesn't actually change anything. I'm gonna have to burn my Chesto Berry before I get there, and then if I set up more, now I have to heal with Rest, and then once I wake up and knock out Steven's initial 2 Pokemon, once I make it back to the Metagross, I'm gonna have less health, and then Psychic will just knock me out. So this is obviously not the option. And now, it is time for me to use an item that gets used a lot in Generation 2, but I have actually not used in Generation 3 yet. At least I don't think I have. So let's head back to Rustboro City, go to the Trainer's School, and in here, I can talk to the teacher who gives me the Quick Claw. Now this item is really going to help against Steven because I only actually have to outspeed 1 Pokemon, which is the Metagross. If I can prevent it from doing damage with Psychic, then I will be able to sweep all of his other Pokemon. In my first fight with this item, I have bad luck and I lose against the Skarmory. Then in the next battle, I make it to the Metagross, so will Quick Claw activate? And the answer is no, unfortunately it won't, so that's my 4th reset. It happens again, and I have a 5th reset. However, like I said, I only needed to activate once. It does, and I KO the Metagross. Now I have much better health for the Claydol, which only has physical attacks, so even with not very effective damage, I'm able to KO it with Brick Break. And this is perfect because that ensures that no screens are set up for the rest of the battle. I can easily one-hit the Aggron, as well as the Cradily, and despite all of this bumpiness, Hariyama clocks in with a time of 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 40 seconds, with 18 resets at level 68. This took 6 hours and 21 minutes of game time. We have a new Hoenn real-time champion. Hariyama is faster than Crawdaunt. And this is so impressive because Hariyama had a total of 18 resets, whereas Crawdaunt only had 7. What that means is there's more room for improvement with Hariyama than there is with Crawdaunt. Honestly, this thing is sort of a beast. It finished the game 2 levels lower than Crawdaunt, and both of them did struggle against Steven, but overall I prefer Hariyama against him just because I have access to Bulk Up. I did need to cheese the Metagross, which doesn't feel great. Anyways, this is an impressive real-time finish, but what about game time? And here, once again, Hariyama has unseated Crawdaunt, and it sets a completely new standard. It has a game time of 6 hours and 21 minutes, which when compared to Crawdaunt's 6 hours and 42 minutes, that is a whole 21 minutes faster. Since I started this channel with a bunch of Generation 1 play in Pokemon Yellow, I never thought I would say this, but fighting types are actually really good. In Generation 3, that is. Don't worry, we all know that fighting types are trash in Generation 1. Anyways, since they're so good in Generation 3, I actually can't wait to play more of them in this game. I'm actually getting really curious about a Pokemon like Medicham because the Psychic fighting type is so unique, and I think that it has a chance to be one of the top performers. However, we are going to have to wait a little while for that because coming up next is Halloween month, and starting tomorrow, I'm going to be doing more than the regular releases, and we are only going to be playing the game with specific types of Pokemon. So I'm only going to be allowed to use Dark types, Ghost types, Poison types, Bug types, and Fossil Pokemon. I think that it is going to be a really fun thematic month, so stay tuned tomorrow for the first Halloween-themed video. You're going to see how Crobat does in Pokemon Yellow. Yes, Crobat in Pokemon Yellow. I can't wait to see if this thing can finally achieve good results for the Zubat line. Like, subscribe, and ring the chime echo so you're notified when those videos go live. Now here I want to give a special thanks to everyone who supports me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Right now, this means more to me than ever. The summer months on YouTube are the worst overall for ad revenue. So it's really nice having all of you support me so that I know that I can pay people like Sean, who works tirelessly on editing all of these videos. And by the way, he deserves so much props for all the work he does on these videos. I probably do not talk about him enough on this channel, but it is true that all of these videos would not exist if I was not able to employ him. So thank you so much, Sean, and everyone else who supports this channel and makes it a reality. And now, if you made it this far in the video, you are incredible. I'll see you in the next one.